I'm recording now. So, Maria Zimmerman, thank you for joining us. Take it away. And thanks for taking the time out of your schedule to do this for my Gaucho applicants.
Sure, sure. So I have it in it is, can you guys see just a slide?
Yes, just the slides we're looking at. Yep.
Okay, so it's in presentation mode on my other monitor. So I'm gonna stay super focused on the monitor that's in front of me so I'm not looking off to the
Gotcha.
side.
Yeah.
Uh in my presentation. So good morning, everyone, or good afternoon if you're on East Coast time. My name is Maria Zimmerman. I'm the Director for Admissions at the Lewis Katz School of Medicine at Temple University. I'm happy to have the opportunity to speak with you, talk to you a little bit about the application process, a little bit about um, Temple, what we look for, what the admission officers look for, and then a little bit about Temple as well. I'm going to go a little quicker through the beginning since you're all current applicants. That way it's probably going to be like major in what you love. You're like, I'm graduating next week. Like I majored in what I maybe didn't love, but too late now. So I'll fly a little bit through the earlier slides and really leave some time then for questions as well. So pathway to professional school, college, the MCAT, the coursework, community engagement, medically related experiences. People think you need research. If you haven't done research, that's okay. We're not a research intensive institution. But if you've done research, make sure you can talk about what you did, no matter what your role was. So a lot of this would have been great to hear 4 years ago, but if you're connected with your pre-health advisor, you're here, they are your advocate through this process. Will really, hopefully, they've helped you navigate into engagement experiences, service opportunities, healthcare experiences, and hope you took advantage of all the opportunities in undergrad, which should have been a time of tremendous growth. I'm sure who you were 4 years ago or 5 years ago when you started college is probably very different than who you are today. We don't have any course requirements, but this is kind of what we see all of our applicants doing because you're applying broadly. Um, I'm assuming you've all done the MCAT by now, so hopefully that foundational coursework prepared you. Um, so community engagement. So when people talk about Temple, I think one of the things that really pops about Temple when you're talking to people here or you're talking about to students that are interested in Temple is the community engagement. So if you're interviewing at Temple, I would say there's a very good chance that you've been very involved in community engagement activities, long-term experiences. Make sure you can talk about those experiences in the interview day. Make sure you're aware as well, if you're interviewing here, about the opportunities at Temple and how maybe what you've done in the past could tie into what you've done, what you could do here at Temple. And it, hopefully has been a great time to learn about yourself and learning about others. I always say, what you get out of those community engagement experiences is something that you never get in the classroom, right? How do you approach people? How do you build trust? How do you work with someone that you maybe have something in common with or nothing in common with? So those are all things that you've developed through those engagement experiences. Medically related experience, very important. Hopefully you've had some long-term encounters. If you're, if you, are maybe thinking of a gap year, we see lots of students that work as scribes, medical assistants, CNAs. Sometimes we even see students that do those while they're enrolled in undergrad, but it's really giving you insight into your choice to pursue medicine. We will get an application and, I like science. People told me I should be a doctor. That's not really what we're looking for. And they usually don't make it to the interview stage. It's more, what did those experiences teach you about what a career in medicine could look like for you? and how have they impacted your journey. So that's really what we're looking for in that. And then research, we have lots of applicants who work as clinical research coordinators, research assistants. It could be basic science, it could be clinical. If you don't have research, that's quite all right. So 4 things here at Temple that are important: your academic potential. We will look at your entire academic record. Um, we see the GPA, but we look at the progression, we look at all the courses, we look at your MCAT score. If you've taken the MCAT more than once, you should be prepared to talk about maybe what you did differently in your preparation to hopefully have a stronger score on the second one. Um, we'll talk to you about your community engagement experiences as well as your healthcare experiences. So we do a holistic review here. There's a variety of subjective and objective things. We're looking at that coursework, looking for competency in the sciences. We're evaluating you to step into a very rigorous curriculum here. And so we're looking, you will probably hear from people if you have friends in medical school. It's a giant leap between what the academic expectations are in undergrad and what it is in medical school. So we're looking for a solid foundation in that. You do need to have the MCAT within 3 years of matriculation. Do you do letters of recommendation, committee letters of recommendation, or do you?
We do not do committee letters here, so they're individual letters that students are submitting on their own behalfs.
Okay, all right. Yeah, a lot of schools are shying away from the committee letters. Makes me sad. I like those committee letters, but
I know, but
I
I always am
understand.
uncomfortable with the gatekeeping kind of aspect of that. So I want students to feel like they can approach us if we're value added, but if they've got their own, kind of things covered, they don't feel obligated to engage with us. But I
Okay.
understand the give and take of the committee letter, but
Yeah,
that's where we are.
yeah, I know. It's an ongoing discussion, but
Yeah.
if that option is available to at least have those letters collated and sent out to the schools, you want to be careful in who you're selecting to write your letters, that they get to know you, that you get to know them, that it's really speaking to you as a potential student to enter a career in medicine, not how hard their course is and that you sat in the front row and you ask questions. I mean, you have no control over what they write, but you want to make sure that they have a chance to speak to who you are as a future healthcare professional. We also require Casper, really the situational judgment test. We don't use the AAMC one. They were honestly too slow to develop theirs. It probably took about 10 years between concept and delivery. We had started with Casper before the AAMC had preview available, and we're sticking with Casper because that's kind of uh, where we are. We're not making the switch to preview. So when we read your application, we should have a good idea of who you are and why you want to be a doctor. And we should really have a good understanding of how the experiences have made you the person you are today. So, I always say, your biographic information is your biographic information. Your grades are your grades, your MCAT. Where we really get a sense of who you are is in your personal comments and your description of your experiences. So hopefully in putting together your personal comments, we have a really good sense of who you are, why this is a path that you've chosen to pursue. Through your experience descriptions, we should have a good understanding of not just what you did, but what that experience was like for you, especially in your most meaningful experiences, if you identified non-healthcare related experiences most meaningful, that's quite all right. It's really what's meaningful to you. And hopefully that'll shine through in your experience descriptions. And we should want to meet you. Nobody goes to medical school without an interview. And so we should want to meet you when the screeners are done reviewing the application. Um, Helpful hints as an applicant, gap years are okay. You really want to apply when you're ready. I will tell you that the experience of applying is a very long process. You probably all submitted your applications in June, early June. If you're lucky, you've been verified by AMCAS. We are getting applications now that were ready for verification in late June, and it's mid-August. So I would say AMCAS is a little slower in their verification. It feels like this year. I don't know. Um,
I've had that sense too, Maria. Yeah, thanks for bringing it up. But that's been my sense as well. I've even brought it up with them, and I think that's the general scuttlebutt around town.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, and I gauge it through our linkage applicants. We have some linkage applications, and I opened those applications in late June, and none of them are in our admissions platform yet. So, you're probably, if you're still waiting for verification, probably getting a little antsy. I understand that. I think it is even more important when you start getting those secondaries that you turn them around very quickly to get yourself complete at the schools where you have applications. Helpful hint as well, stay connected with the pre-health advising office. They are a great resource for you. You don't have a committee letter, but you have a process to assemble the letters. That's a great way to make sure all those letters get in. Sometimes when you do individual letters, you might have one letter writer that's kind of a straggler holding up you completing the process.
While we're on
The
the topic of letters, Maria, can you tell me, I don't have your webpage up front on my machine right now, but what are your LOR requirements? Can you talk, are you two science professors? Are you a humanities professor? Do you remember off the top of your head what your requirements are for rec letters?
I do. So, a committee letter or a compilation packet. So, if you're compiling the letters, we don't have you need this many of this or this many of the other. If it's
Okay.
individual letters, we prefer, but don't require, two science letters from professors that had you in the classroom. So, if you
Okay.
did research, that's great. You can include that letter, but we're really looking for classroom-based
Got it.
letters. And then the third letter can be a humanities professor. It could be somebody that supervised you in a work experience or a community engagement activity. We require a minimum of 3 letters, and we ask that you not submit more than 6 letters.
Got it. Good to know.
And it's all preferences.
Yep.
So,
Got
you
it. Thank you.
know. And then the pre-med rumor mill, there's I think as an applicant, there's sometimes a feeling of comfort having the pre-med rumor mill guide you. I am here to tell you, please ignore it. It's a lot of noise. It's like Taylor Swift last night. If anyone watched her New Heights podcast, where she's talking about social media and how she tunes that out because she doesn't want to have that sort of guide her, and people shouldn't use that. It can guide your emotions and stuff like that. So
Yeah, my
take
my
that
student,
advice.
I'm a broken record on that topic to that very point. So I appreciate Maria you chiming in on this topic so that they know it's not just me ranting about this, but I try to tell students to the extent possible avoid pre-med Reddit, SDN, et cetera, because it's generally not time well spent.
Yeah, we look at SDN like maybe once a year, just like, oh, what are people saying? And I can tell you guys, I was just telling some students this today. A couple years ago, we looked at it right before we released decisions. And we don't do decisions every week. We interview every week. We have admissions committee every week, but we do 4 rounds of offers to take some of the randomness out of the process, right? And somebody posted that they received their decision. And so, after interview, and as you can imagine, everybody that had interviewed in that point melted down on SDN. and then started calling our office to see if we released decisions. And then that person disappeared, right? Like they dropped their little untruth and then they disappeared. So don't believe everything you read on there because, and I'm not going to post like we didn't release decisions, but we didn't release decisions. So don't believe everything you read there. And, really that's where the advising office can sort of be that steady sort of, um, what you should be thinking about or considering, answering those questions. My advice for every applicant is to have a variety of healthcare experiences and community engagement experiences. We're looking for quality over quantity to confirm your career choice. We're really looking at those long-term experiences. You should be doing or should have done what you enjoy, not what you think we want to see. And this often comes up with students who are taking a gap year, or maybe they didn't get in and need to reapply and they're thinking of taking a gap year. And they're like, what do you think I should do? And I always say, you should do what makes you happy. It can be, if you want to be in a healthcare field, great. If you want to work retail and just grind to make some money, great. I always say though, if you're not going to be in a healthcare position, to maybe stay engaged in some of those healthcare experiences. Hopefully you've majored in what you love. Some of this is stuff that if you took a summer course, you're probably like, oh my gosh, I took a summer course in Chem 1. What does that mean for my application? It means you took a Chem 1 summer course. It's not going to rule you out. These are just my bits of recommendation to students, no matter where I'm meeting them along the continuum.
Can you elaborate on this? Because this is the first time I've heard counsel along those lines. So can you talk a little bit about that science coursework in the summer and what reservations Temple perhaps or other places might have? Because this is news to me.
Sure. So summer courses are usually shorter than the regular term courses, right? So you're taking a 14-week Gen Chem course and squishing it down to a 6-week course. And you're learning, you're testing, and then you're moving on. Where sort of that scaffolding with the learning and sort of absorbing and understanding, you don't really get that with the summer courses. When I am talking to students who maybe didn't do as well as they want on the MCAT, I'll often see summer courses. And I think if a student takes a shorter, more condensed summer course, that preparation for the MCAT is more of a stretch. And I'm not saying you can't do well on the MCAT. I think the preparation and sort of the review and relearning becomes a bit more of a stretch as you're preparing for the MCAT.
Got it. So you're just really talking about potential downstream effects of a compressed summer course, but it's not like a negative, it's not like a redlining kind of event for your application review of an applicant's package.
Not at all.
Got
Not
it.
at all.
Okay. Thanks for
Not at
clarifying.
all.
Okay, super.
Yeah. I mean, we have students that took summer courses that joined us last week. So
Yeah, great. Okay.
it's not a rule out. It's just sort of general advice that I
Got
give.
you.
And, if it's an upper level course, maybe you're a bio major and you need to take a bio elective and you're doing it in the summer, that doesn't matter so much. It's really the foundational coursework that I'm talking about with that. You want to take advantage of all the opportunities that you've had along the way. Keep taking advantage of those opportunities now so you can talk about what you've been doing now. And then it's all about the balance, not sweating the small stuff, taking a deep breath. I always, on the interview day, I tell applicants, all right, take a deep breath, like you've got this, as they're a little nervous sitting in the Zoom rooms. So a little bit about us. Last year, we had over 14,000. It's typically over 13,000 applications each year. At this point, we have over 11,000 applications. It feels bigger. It's a little bit bigger, but We do have over 11,000 right now. We interview about 1,100, and our class size is 220. So in that 220, we have 180 students at our North Philadelphia campus, which is the photo on the right, more of an urban location. Our main teaching hospital, it's really the safety net hospital here in Philadelphia. Um, our main teaching hospital is Temple Hospital, although we have some other local hospitals, Mainline Health, Temple Health has a few other hospitals. We have Fox Chase Cancer Center. We have Episcopal Hospital, which mostly does psych and behavioral health. Another hospital named Jeans, but all located in the city of Philadelphia. Our catchment area or our patients really come from North Philadelphia and a little bit into Northeast Philadelphia. Social determinants of health are very real in our health system here. And so, yeah, so we have 180 students that are at our North Philadelphia campus. We also have a regional campus in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, which is about an hour and a half north of us, in the Lehigh Valley. St. Luke's Regional Campus, it's a multi-hospital network in the Lehigh Valley that has 40 students there. Starting in 2027, we're going to have WellSpan Health, which is in York, Pennsylvania, which is, I would say, more of a rural location. St. Luke's is more suburban, a little exurban, but WellSpan's in more of a rural location, and so we'll have that option available in 2027, and there'll be 40 students at that campus. The regional campus students do all 4 years at that location. In their 4th year, they can do electives at North Philadelphia. Our North Philly students do rotations at St. Luke's and at WellSpan. They've started doing some rotations at WellSpan in the 3rd and 4th year. So it's an opportunity for you to not only work with different patient populations, but also see you'd be in different health system. What does healthcare look like in a more rural location? What does healthcare look like in a more suburban, exurban location? What does it look like in an urban location? So it's really great for you to think about where you want your career to be. You know, in 3rd and 4th year, you're not only deciding what you want to do, but you're starting to think about, well, where would I like to practice ultimately? Maybe not at that location, but at least in a sort of similar geographic area. So our curriculum here, it's an integrated single pass curriculum. Phase 1 goes from August of your 1st year through January of your 2nd year. It's an introduction to normal structure all the way through the disease processes and how they're managed. In phase 2, you're doing your core clinical clerkships, which includes internal medicine, family medicine, psychiatry, OB-GYN, surgery, neuro. And then in phase 3, you're doing your advanced clerkships and electives. So here's a visual of the curriculum. The students start with 4 fundamentals blocks where they have, and they vary in length, just depending on what the block is. The students, we just brought in the new class. Last week was Transition to Medical School. This is the first week of Fundamentals 1, pretty much gross anatomy, embryology, and imaging. And then they'll have a fundamentals blocks primarily looking at biochemistry, microimmuno, and then pharmacology before they move into their systems blocks, where they really have the normal functioning and then the disease processes. And they have 3 systems blocks to finish out the 1st year. They have about 8 weeks off for summer break. Then they have 3 more systems blocks before winter break, and then they'll have a final multi-organ system disease block before they move into the dedicated self-study period. Transition to phase 2 is a week-long orientation to everything you need to know to step into the clinical space. Phase 2 starts in April. Both phase 2 and 3 actually start in April. They go April through March. And so you have early introduction to some of that clinical space, the rotations, figuring out what it is that you like, what it is that you can see yourself doing, what it is that you can't see yourself doing, as it may be. And then when you get to phase three, you have early opportunity to do a lot of those electives and away rotations to maybe, if you want to go back to California for residency, an opportunity to get some early rotations in before the residency application process begins. Throughout the first 2 years, we have a course called Doctoring, which is where you're really learning the art and skills necessary to become a caring and compassionate physician. Temple's reputation here is that we train the clinician's clinician. It's a very hands-on education. Residency programs know what they're getting when they see an application from a Temple student. We had a student who early on in her residency was doing a residency in OB, spent a day working with a clinician doing a lot of surgeries, a lot of difficult cases. And in talking with the physician on a break, she asked where she went to medical school. And when she told her Temple, she said, well, that explains a lot, because you're really during phase three acting as an intern. You're very hands-on. You're not standing around watching the important people do things. And there's a level of comfort that our students develop to then move into the residency space. But it all begins in doctoring. As much as possible in doctoring, they do tie what you're learning in the basic science to the doctoring activities. So our curriculum is mornings of basic science. So everything in blue here is in the morning, and then afternoons are doctoring. You're all together on a Monday afternoon for a resource session, and then you'll have your small group doctoring activities on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. So when you're in the cardiovascular block, you may have doctoring activities related to heart failure or counseling a patient with high blood pressure. There's a variety of ways that you're learning. There's standardized patient encounters. There's sessions with you and a few of your peers and a patient actor going step by step through questioning, through physical exams. There's simulation center activities. So lots of different ways that you're getting that foundational coursework in doctoring before you step into phase 2 and 3. Here's just some shots of doctoring. There's also some interprofessional education activities in the Sim Center. So you'll be with students from the PA program, podiatry, nursing, other health professions programs here at Temple. So why do students select Temple? I think as I said earlier, our reputation is that we're really training the clinician's clinician. Students will, work with a Temple alum. The residency programs know what they're getting. I'll talk to fourth year students that say, I was doing an away rotation at wherever, and I was with students from other medical schools, and I could tell the difference in my Temple training being in that space. There's a comfort level you develop in approaching the patient, in questioning the patient, really building that rapport, building that trust. So the clinical training here is excellent. Community engagement. Our students are very involved in the community here, whether it's the student-run clinic, volunteering at the homeless shelter. There's other organizations here in the city, Prevention Point, Puentes de Salud. There's lots of different ways that our students engage here. It's the city, whether it's Philadelphia or Bethlehem or future York, is a great opportunity to develop those relationships while you're here. Learning environments enriched by a diverse student body here. The faculty are very supportive. That is probably the biggest feedback here, is that the faculty are very supportive. Your peers are very supportive. I like to say we have students here that play well in the sandbox. I wish I could tell you there was like a secret formula to doing that from an admissions perspective, and there's really not. I think we really dig into service when we're reviewing applications. And so I think maybe that brings us different kind of student. you will hear me forever complain about virtual interviews, but when we did interview in person, the students would say, I came here and I felt like I could feel the student vibe, the support, where, maybe at other institutions they felt a layer of stress when they walked amongst the students. I think here it's a very supportive student body. And then we do have some programs here. We have a certificate in narrative medicine. We have a combined MD, Masters in Health Justice and Bioethics that are done during your 4 years of medical school. They're very popular programs for the students to really enhance your MD track. So the dual degrees, we also have an MD PhD program. You step out between phase 1 and 2 or years 2 and 3 to complete the PhD requirements, which takes about 3 years or so. The MDMA in Health Justice and Bioethics, you take coursework in your first 2 years. And then during phase 2 and 3, you take electives and do your thesis. We have an MD MBA program, a little less popular. I mean, it's just student choice. We probably have 1 or 2 students a year that do that, and all of the coursework, it's online. It's the online MBA, and they complete that in the 4 years. And then the narrative medicine certificate program, you do some electives in narrative medicine and some courses, and a lot of it is writing and reflection in that program. If you talk, as I said earlier, if you talk to any Temple student, the students are very engaged here with the local community, internationally, nationally. They really prioritize service as part of their training here. It's not something that they did before they got here and they stopped. They're very engaged. And then our post-bac program, so the student that you refer to did a different post-bac linkage program also at Temple, but not our post-bac program, which is confusing, I know. But we do have a post-bac program here offered through the medical school. You take graduate coursework here at the medical school. It's for students that have done that foundational coursework. You apply through post-bac CAS and you interview for that program, and your interview, if you're accepted into the post-bac program, it comes with a conditional acceptance to the medical school for the following year, so you don't have a gap year. The academic requirement is a 3.60 in the post-bac coursework. The MCAT requirement is a 509 with no section below a 126. Which is lower than the average for our matriculants, but we still think for all of our linkage programs, that's what the academic and MCAT requirements are, and we feel that that's a reasonable requirement for that. So if you maybe applied and weren't successful and you think maybe, doing a post-bac program to really strengthen your foundational science background, because we have students that come and do the program that have already met the MCAT requirement. They just need to meet the GPA requirement. Or sometimes we have students that just never apply to medical school and they want to pursue this just to really give themselves that foundational background. And sometimes we have students that don't have the MCAT exam and they come and they do the MCAT review and the coursework and then take the MCAT. So it is a great option for students who really want to strengthen their science background before starting medical school. And then I have a slide for our physician assistant program, but that is probably not. I think you're all interested in MD.
I don't have any pre-PA kids on this call. So
okay. All right. So I'll just skip right over that. So I know I gave you a lot of information and sort of flew through the beginning of it, but I'd be happy to take any questions.
This has been great. I really do appreciate your points about some of the things that I think you reiterate. It's one thing for my students to hear it from me, but it's great when I have folks like you, Maria, who are seconding those kinds of things. I think it's important to underscore. Um, so before I stop the recording, I've got a couple of questions, one of which is, we talked a little bit about your process, but like, I asked this of admissions directors, back to the social media piece. You will often hear on Premed Reddit or SDN, well, I didn't get an II by Thanksgiving or winter break or whatever. I guess it's reapplication time. Can you talk a little? I'd like to dispel that, for my students, but can you talk a little bit about your process internal? Like, how late are you extending IIs? How late are you interviewing? And, anecdotal, of course, but, to, what extent are there some late breakers in the like late offers in the application cycle?
Yeah, so if you haven't heard from us about an interview invitation, that's quite all right because we haven't started inviting people. We are screening away, but we haven't issued any interview invitations. They won't start coming out for about another 2 weeks or so. We start interviewing the Tuesday a week after Labor Day. We interview through mid-April, which is incredibly long, I know, but it's just a capacity issue. We have a capacity for so many applicants a week. We know we need to interview X number of people to sort of wind up with our class of 220. We are inviting people in mid-March for interview. So it's just a really long process. That's why I sort of said earlier, you want to apply when you're ready because it is a long process. You don't want to just sort of throw your hat out of there and see what sticks. I counsel people, you should really give yourself another year to, you know, do these things because it is a long and expensive process, right? Like there's the primary fees, all the medical schools have secondary application fees, and then there's the hope that you've submitted an application, you're complete, and until you hear you're not you're not being interviewed or you're invited for interview, there's hope. And we only interview about 1,100 people. So there's a lot of people that are waiting through the process. We try to start notifying people like sort of mid-cycle if we're not going to bring them in for interview. But a big push of the people not getting invited for interview happens late in the process. And I think that's at a lot of schools. There's a lot of really great applicants that we could choose from for interview. And so we kind of are looking at things until we say, all right, you know,
Well, thanks for that. Myth busting is a part of what I do, so thank you for helping me in that effort. I'll go ahead and stop the recording now.